welcome to episode 49 of PauseCast. It's August the 3rd, 2017. I'm Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Hey.
Hey.
You were mentioning something to me just before we started this show about the date.
Yeah,
and I wanted to address it with you because I felt like it was very important.
So the date is August the 3rd, and I'm sure that there are people with that name.
Yeah, is the thing. August isn't a terribly common name, is it? But, I'm sure it's a name.
Oh, yeah. Short for Augustus? I don't know. It's a name.
All I can think of it as Augustus Gloop.
The name of someone who would definitely be the third.
But, also Augustus Gloop from the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely a name.
Definitely a name.
Anything's a name if you really want to call that, I guess.
Oh, you could name your child Sonic the Hedgehog, but why would you?
Why would you even bring that up? Why would that occur to you?
It was the first name I, reached for. Was Sonic the Hedgehog.
I mean,
how would you even do that? Would you just...
Two middle names. Done.
I forgot that, that's an option that you have.
Yeah, you can put in as many middle names as you want.
That's true. Oh, God. Okay, we can't do this. So, my child is named Sonic the Hedgehog. 100% definitely. So this is a show about video games, and we talk about video games. And that's where we're at.
I couldn't name my kid August the 3rd, because I'm not August the 2nd.
Yeah, I know, but
Anyway, sorry, I'm getting us back off track.
Could you make up some bullshit about, this other... could you make up some shit about August Jr. meeting a terrible fate?
I think really what I'd have to do is change my name and get my dad to also change his name. And then I could do it. Okay. That doesn't seem worth it.
Honestly, I have, I'll be honest, I've been, fucking obsessed with the idea of, being the third of something. I'm not gonna lie, I've had this idea of being Jessica the Third, and that sounds so cool, but also so very, very pretentious.
You don't want to be the second because then you're just going to become junior.
And that sucks.
Right? And by the time it's the fourth, it's kind of petered out.
It's bad, as it turns out.
Yeah, when you're making up D&D names, the third is the one that comes up all the time.
That's true, honestly.
Yep.
I had some cool stuff to talk about with D&D.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's kind of Adventure Zone adjacent, kind of Dark Souls adjacent. There's good stuff in there, I think. But what have you been playing this week?
Okay, I'm keen to get into that. What I've been playing this week, I picked up City Skylines again. It was like I talked about last week about how my game mode has kind of shifted to multitasking a bit. It's a good multitasking game. I can just do whatever. And I played it a bit when I first got it, but not too much. I've probably played more of it now over the last week. And I've found one thing I really like about it. I complain all the time, right, about how games will ramp up difficulty past where I want it to, sort of thing. But with Cities, you can just stop ramping up the difficulty. Because all that is, they've got the 3 demand bars down the bottom that's you should get more of this type of district because that's what the people want. But if you don't fulfill that, it's fine. Nothing happens. Things just continue on. People don't hate you because you don't build more houses. You just don't have more houses to deal with. So I can get to a point where I'm comfortable just sitting and running and making this better instead of getting bigger and just do that. And when I realized that, it felt really freeing playing that because I was like, no, I could even tone things down if I want and just get rid of a bunch of rows and it'll be fine, So that was quite cool.
Cities was definitely like my de facto podcast game for
Yeah,
a bit,
yeah.
and like it's been good for like I was listening to the Adventure Zone, and like that's a really good series.
That's the
I
one that
was
I've been listening to, yeah.
Yeah, have you? Where are you at on that now?
I'm in, it's called the Crystal Kingdom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that arc is very cool. I
They've all
think
been pretty cool.
that is. I think that's the first arc where they've actually started to like where Griffin actually like composed a score for it.
Yeah, they've had music, yeah.
So yeah, the Crystal Kingdom is one of my favorite acts for like introducing that stuff, and then the score just gets like gradually better as like the series goes on.
Right, more
Like
stuff to look forward to.
yeah, like the series also just starts going places from that point forward. I'm so excited that you are continuing to listen.
It's also been good just to get my D&D kicks, because the game that I run, it's been really hard lately getting everyone together at the same time. So it's been like a month and a half since our last session, and it's a week and a half before we finally get to do another one. So I miss it, and it's going to be hard to keep the pace up enough to be interesting between those long periods without skipping over stuff that I feel is important. So we'll see how that goes. But it's been good having something D&D wise to consume in the meantime.
Yeah, I want to get into this D&D stuff more, but first I want to tell you what I've been playing this week. I've been playing Wolfenstein: The New Order, which I briefly started, or restarted. This would be playthrough number 3 of that game.
A full playthrough the last 2?
Yep.
Nice.
That Wolfenstein is excellent.
What made you come back to it?
The fact that it's been sitting on my shelf, and also the fact that I've been thinking about Wolfenstein 2 like a lot recently.
Oh, right,
like
because that was one of the games that got previewed at E3, right? Very cinematically.
Yes, and like Wolfenstein: The New Order is an astonishingly good game. Is the other thing, and we've had a copy of it sitting on the PS4, and so I wanted to like boot that up and play it. And yeah, it turns out that game is still good. It's taking a while for me to get used to like playing that game on PS4, because the last 2 times I played it on PC. So I've got to get used to all the like console controls, which I kind of like, because it gives you like, you know how you when you're near cover you lean out in certain games like Far Cry and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Wolfenstein gives you manual control over that.
Oh, is it using like the tilt of the controller or something?
No, it's you press and hold L1 and then it leans you.
Oh, but you got variable
so you
pressing.
then like instead of moving around, you actually lean left or up, and it's really cool for like popping up above boxes and unloading.
Nice.
It is immensely satisfying to have control over that and to be able to play it. And oh god, that game's story is very good. I want to kiss whoever shot all of the cinematics for all of them. They are. It is astonishingly good looking. That game is good.
Nice.
Wolfenstein: The New Order is good.
And it looks as good on PlayStation as it did on PC?
Maybe a little bit less good, but honestly, I haven't noticed anything like glaring.
Yeah.
Like, all the lighting still looks great. All the environments still look great. Wolfenstein is good. I hope Wolfenstein 2 is as good as this.
It's a single-player only game, right?
Yeah, it is. Single-player, ultra-high narrative experiences.
Kind of rare for a shooter now, isn't it?
Oh,
a first-person
extremely.
shooter.
Especially, like, even, like, Doom had a multiplayer mode, which felt very weird, and Doom's multiplayer is bad. I don't recommend it. But apparently, like, Doom has a history with that, where Wolfenstein did not have any sort of history with, like, making a multiplayer mode in their series.
Right.
I think there was maybe, like, an ill-guided attempt at doing multiplayer in 2009, but then the series hadn't been touched until The New Order, and now they've brought it back as this, like, really narrative-heavy, really cinematic heavy first person experience, and Wolfenstein: The New Order is very good. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, I think, is a little bit less cinematic heavy.
Is that the new one they're making?
I said The Old Blood, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
The Old Blood was like a standalone expansion pack for the New Order.
Okay, right, okay.
Also quite good. What I've played of that, you get a pipe as your melee weapon, and it's very good. It reminds me very much of the quote from one of the Wolfenstein 2 interviews. There's a lot of things you can do with a hatchet and a Nazi.
Yeah, I remember that quote. That's a pretty memorable quote. Yeah.
It's a very memorable quote, and I'm looking forward... I mentioned it before. I'm just immensely looking forward to seeing all the things that I can do with a hatchet and a Nazi. It's going to be a lot. Wolfenstein is good. I briefly booted up Dark Souls. That's been... Dark Souls 2, I want to be clear. That's been good. Overwatch, I'm in a tournament. I have a match time confirmed on that.
Oh, yeah?
It's tomorrow.
Ooh.
So tomorrow at 8 p.m., which is the same time we started this show, 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time. It is
tomorrow
my team.
Being the 4th of August for anyone who's...
Tomorrow being the 4th of August, yes. So 4th of August at 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time. It will be my team, the Transistors, versus Goon Gaming. And that will be week 1 of the league wrapped up.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
You feeling confident?
I'm feeling pretty good. We've had really great practices with our other teammate.
Nice.
So I'm feeling like we have some potential, but it's also on the flip side, I'm not sure. It's we'll have to wait and see kind of situation, but I feel decent about where we're at right now.
I realized I forgot about one of the big games I've been playing this week. So it's been cold lately.
Yes, it has been.
So
I've had to have the heater in here just like beside me while I play Overwatch, because otherwise my hands get too cold and I can't play very good.
Yeah. What we've done, my flatmate and I, is we've got a fireplace, but it's downstairs. Usually, in the evenings, we're in our rooms because we're playing games, and we'll heat those separately. But what we've been doing, because it's cold, we've got the fire going in the evenings. My laptop is easy to take downstairs. My flatmate has actually brought his desktop downstairs. It's been down there for like almost a week. And he's hooked up to the TV. We've been playing Dying Light again.
Oh, because the first content drop happened, didn't it? #content.
Yeah, actually, no, it did. We've seen some of that. Although that didn't prompt us to come back. It was more just, you can bring your desktop down again. What can we do? Oh, I know. So that's been cool. We've gotten through... So I finished the game before separately. We've gotten through to the area with the second map now. We haven't done any of the following content yet, but it's been fun to get it back into.
Dying Light is a good game.
It is a good game. It just made me think a bit about how hardware shapes games, I guess, and how portable it is. Because moving his desktop downstairs is kind of an ordeal, right? It's not like with my laptop, which is the least portable laptop in the world, to be fair. Like, I went through an airport recently and it never fits in the bins.
That weighs fucking 15 pounds. It's bananas.
I have no idea how much 15 pounds weighs, but sure.
Like 5 kilos.
It's not that heavy, but it's closer than any other laptop. Yeah, and so it's interesting. It's easy for me to take my laptop. It's hard for him to move his desktop around. And when he does, it becomes quite stationary. But just the difference between that and, for example, my 3DS, my brother's got a Switch. How stationary the PS4 is because it sits beneath the TV downstairs and we don't move it back and forth so much. It's interesting how it means we don't really play Dying Light unless his desktops downstairs. It's a sort of multiplayer game where it's nice to be in the same room, but it's on PC. And I mean, in the same room means more than just being able to talk to each other, because obviously you can play games with someone online and talk to them via voice chat. But being able to look at each other's screens and some say, hey, look at this thing I found, and just look at the screen, is really nice in that game. More so than in, for example, the Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer, which is the other game that we play together quite a lot. You don't get any of that, hey, look at this on my screen kind of stuff in there, because it's much more regimented in what it is. It's wave defense kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in this, all the time, it's like, oh, I found this, come look at this. But it's not come look at this, it's just like, I'll look up from my laptop and see what he's doing, or he'll look over from the TV and see what I'm doing. It's really nice. I think the last time we did this was we had a power cut while we were playing it. So zombies, everything's dark. His computer's gone off. Mine's still going because it's a laptop, but it's suddenly gone stuttery.
Yeah, because you're just on like the low performance, kind of optimized.
Yeah, it gets throttled.
Optimized for battery mode.
But yeah, we thankfully haven't had any more power cuts while playing, because that kind of freaked us out. But no, it's been really good playing that again.
I want to get back to Dying Light at some point. That game is very good.
I still haven't played any of the expansion content either, despite owning it.
Yeah, I haven't touched any of that. Like, just the base game of Dying Light is so utterly satisfying to me. Like, running around in that world feels so good. There's this, like, overwhelming sense of freedom that kind of surrounds everything that you do in Dying Light, even if it's... a lot of the main story stuff and side content stuff, I remember feeling quite a bit fetch questy. And, like...
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, I have to talk to you? It's like, oh, thanks for this item you got me. And it's like, oh, I don't remember that, but okay. There's a bunch of that sort of stuff.
I completed this quest. I definitely remember exactly who gave it to me and why.
I got your glasses? Sure. Oh, apparently I know your name. Okay, I don't remember you. But yeah.
Hey, you're hooking me up with some, like, sick weapons that you had time to make back there. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing with all those weapons there? You want to... Oh, you've got a gun. And, oh, you're just going to give that to me? You're going to give me your gun? You're, like, most powerful? Oh, okay.
We got the anti-gadoid gun last night. Not last night.
The what, sorry?
The anti-gadoid gun.
I've never heard of this.
It's a special meteorite-powered gun. I won't tell you about it if you haven't heard of it. You should go play the game more.
Oh my god, I need to get back into Dying Light again, I guess. Have you fucked with the legend system at all in that game?
Not really, because it's only accessible once you finish the game. So I've done one level of it to get the hand-to-hand up, so I could try punching zombies and see how effective that was. But that was when I'd gone back after a while, and we were just about to play it together, me and Ken. But I was going to start a new game alongside him, so I haven't played my completed save again since then, so the Legion stuff isn't unlocked yet for us. We're getting closer, though.
What the Legend system reminds me of quite a bit, or at least maybe it's just in concept. It reminds me a little bit of Borderlands Badass Rank, only it doesn't actually like sustain between all of your characters.
Oh yeah, yeah. It reminds me of the Paragon levels in Diablo as well, which is kind of a similar thing.
Oh,
that goes between all your characters, unlike Dying Light.
Okay.
Which is so that's after your max level. You keep gaining levels,
right? And then
but instead of unlocking more skills and making you stronger, they just give you you spend them on small bonuses, and you can swap around how they're spent out. But it's like, oh, I want higher life per hit and gold find or whatever. So it's like extra points you can spend on bonuses, which is what the Legends stuff does.
Is it like infinite, or is there like a limit to the Paragon level system?
Most of the things you can spend it on are capped at 50.
Right.
But there are some that are uncapped, so I don't know if your level actually caps out or not. I'm not sure. I haven't got that high. If it does, it probably caps out at 800, I think it would be. Yeah,
Okay.
800. But I don't know if it caps out then or not. It might not.
So I want to shift gears, and I want to talk a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons and Dark Souls.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear about this.
So I guess I want to start with this initial pitch, I guess, and because I've been thinking about starting a tabletop RPG, and I want to run it on Powered by the Apocalypse, which is a like comparatively very simple system compared to something like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons.
Pathfinder is so complex. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about that is like I've never GM'd anything before ever.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, looking on the outside right now, like I feel like Powered by the Apocalypse is the system that allows me to get straight to the meat of what I find the most interesting about doing GMing, which is building a world and telling a story.
Absolutely.
And because that's the part that I'm most interested in, like the simplicity of Powered by the Apocalypse really appeals to me because everything runs on 2 dice, and it allows me as the GM to kind of get my feet wet without, and again get right at that meat without having to spend hours kind of mired in rules.
So, what is the gist of
I
how
get
it
that.
works? What is the gist of how it works, or would you rather keep going with your pitch before we get to
The
that?
gist of how it works is basically so you have 2d6 or standard dice,
Yep.
and they constitute all of your rolls. So 10 to 12 is a complete success. Basically, at that point, the player takes over and they can do whatever they would like for that action. So if you asked them to make a roll and they were engaged in a fight and they did a sweet dodge, with that 10 to 12, they would be able to like tell you they did a counterattack, and you put the control in your player's hands.
Okay. Because I've played Pathfinder and D&D, and there's a lot of stuff like, oh, we'll have this modifier if I'm trying to do this, and this modifier if I'm trying to do that. Does Power by the Apocalypse do away with all that stuff?
There is some modifiers stuff. Like there's some, as far as I like. Bear in mind, my knowledge of this is largely based off of Griffin McElroy's implementation for the Stolen Century.
Sure. I'm asking more to understand what you're expecting to play with rather than
Right.
specifically a pitch
So
for that thing.
basically, there are 3 core stats, I guess, which are heart, body, and mind.
Right? Okay. Yep.
So if you were doing that example fight, you'd be rolling 4 plus body, and so you would get whatever associated body bonus you had. Heart would be like interpersonal interactions. So an example might be if you were trying to comfort someone who was in a bad place, you would roll plus heart.
I'm mentally mapping this onto the D&D characteristics.
Okay. And then plus mind would be like history checks, stuff like that. History, intelligence, probably wizarding. I think wizarding counts as plus mind. So
That makes sense. Okay.
all of that stuff is quite simple. That appeals to me a lot. I'll continue with explaining how the dice work also really quickly. So 6 to 10 is a mixed success, which usually means you give the player some control, and they usually succeed at their action, but at a slight drawback. Like they might do that dodge, but be in a kind of, they might be, I don't know, down for a second, like because they like slid to do the dodge, something like that. In certain situations, you might have the ability to like kind of try and negotiate how your mixed success would work. So if you're talking with royalty, and you're trying to convince them to send a couple people with you to go on this expedition, and you roll a mixed success on your plus heart roll, then you might have to give up a couple items to make it worthwhile.
Well, the people they send are useless.
Yeah, something like that. Like we'll send some people, but they won't be our best men, you know?
Okay. It's
And then anything below a 6 is a failure.
Mhm.
Statistically, you're most likely to roll a 7, I think, when it comes to dice.
if you're
So,
rolling 2d6 together.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, it's seven's most likely. Yep.
So, you're generally going to be in mixed success kind of territory. The pitch I had was largely surrounding Dark Souls because I find the world of Dark Souls super interesting,
hmm
but it's definitely super bleak, and it's maybe not kind of the most, I guess, entertaining or engaging world to be in, but it is interesting.
I see interesting and engaging is often like very closely related. To be fair, like the more
Uh,
interesting a world is, the more engaging stuff you can do with it, right?
mm. Well, I guess when I say it's interesting but perhaps not engaging, I mean like it's interesting enough that I take pause and occasionally read the lore
Mm.
and like note some of the cool stuff that's happened here, and I know a little bit about the history that I've pieced together from playing these games, and I have this gist of what's going on, and I think the stuff that's happening there is like totally interesting,
The
but it
game does
doesn't
it very passively,
necessarily.
though. Eh?
Pardon?
Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No. I want to hear what you said.
The game does it very passively, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, Dark Souls does do that quite passively.
Which makes
And
it good and mysterious on
yeah,
the one hand.
and I mean, you could actively engage with that quite a bit more than I do.
Mhm.
And I'm like, there are definitely people who do that. I'm just not one of them. I have, I struggle to engage with lore a lot of the time. It's not because I'm disinterested, but it's that I don't know why I can't quite fully get into lore.
It depends on the way it's presented, right? Because lore that is developed during a game, like the things are unfolding or you're seeing stuff happening in the past, it's different to here's a bunch of stuff that happened that doesn't seem quite so active, and you have to just go and take yourself away from the game or the active gameplay to read about it. That's a bit
Mm,
harder to fully get your teeth into unless you get really excited about it.
yeah, and I mean, there's definitely some stuff that, like I said, I think people get really excited about Dark Souls because there is a lot of stuff like that that you could get excited about. There's like
Mm.
lots of battles,
And they don't
lots of
explain
like
everything as well, right? So
no, they
people
don't
can
really.
can wonder
Dark
about
Souls
it and
doesn't.
argue about it.
Yeah, Dark Souls doesn't really explain itself all that well too often. It explains itself clearly enough to like you have an approximation,
Mm.
I
hmm
guess, at most times of what's happening in Dark Souls. Which also like there's another problem within that in that it makes the series inherently perhaps less accessible to people who that like just doesn't jive they don't jive with that particular school of design.
hmm
Back to it, like Dark Souls is kind of bleak, and I want to have this. I've been thinking about how kind of Dark Souls operated in its world, and it opens with kind of this cinematic saying like, "Oh yeah, fire was like huge for this world," and the people who kind of found it in this world were given immense power, even with like just small pieces, these tiny embers of the fire. They had immense power. But what if that was a kind of cycle and you had more artifacts in which you which people discovered and they gained huge amounts of power and knowledge and like mostly used it for good. And so society was built up around that. And then another cycle happens and more periods of rapid advancement happen. Um, Also, like now that you're getting into like another cycle, you start to leave disparity behind. Like there's going to be areas in which the influence of these things is lessened, and so you have this. I guess you have this structure, you have this starting point in the world that is low, and then it gets just more and more progressively advanced as you go. And people are trying their people trying to make their way in this world, people trying to do good. And being enabled by these artifacts. And I think that's conceptually interesting. I think like what happens if the cycle is broken? Like is it some sort of is it regular to begin with? And if it's not, like, can that cycle be broken? Could one person hoard all the power? If they do, what does that look like? Where do they go? There are a lot of questions that you could have about this sort of formula based in the root of Dark Souls, I guess, and then taken farther afield. I'm interested in developing that out for another world, but I would have to, like, for a game, I really have to think about a lot with that. I have to think about power structures. I have to think about the cycle itself and how that operates by nature. It's a little bit daunting. You have created a super interesting sounding fantasy world.
It's taken a while to build everything up because I've been running this game for like a year and a half, I think.
I want to hear you talk about the process of designing a world, though, and what your world is like.
So, I've talked to a bunch of friends about this process as well, who also have run games and built their own worlds. And there's kind of a couple of ways to it, I guess. I've got one friend who really likes doing it top down, where he wants to go away for ages and make the whole world. Or like every part of it, all the countries, how they interact, all the history and stuff. And then once that's all settled, he'll drop players into stuff that already exists and has existing relationships and stuff. Right. I've kind of gone the opposite way, where I've gone, okay, I'm going to make this small chunk and throw you in here and start drawing around the edges to expand out in the direction you're heading. And the rest of the world, I'll grow as I need to. I've found that more maintainable for my style of world building. But one thing I struggled with for quite a while before it clicked, I think sometime while I was playing Final Fantasy X, was the idea that, so I should give a little bit of background in that I am not a huge fan of typical high fantasy. D&D is full of that. It's full of elves and dwarves and orcs and gnomes and stuff. I'm not hugely into that. I'm happy to go with it because it gives us a framework to work in, and kind of, we've already started. I'm not going to change people around anyway. But in order to break away from that sort of, hey, it's a standard D&D world, I want to think, what's like one thing that I can use to describe my world and how it stands apart from different fantasy? The thing I settled on for my D&D world is, after some event in the past involving the gods of the world I've made, something about the universe changed, and from that point on, people or animals who either did a lot of really important things, good or evil, or somehow embodied something really close to perfectly, they'd sort of draw power to them and become monsters, like monster with a capital M in this world. And that's kind of the power structure there, where this thing didn't used to happen, and then it started happening long time ago. So now there's these mythical things that people know are out there, and more than that, they know that anyone super important could become that sort of focus for that power and become one themselves. So that's the thing that I came up with that sets my world apart, and I've tried to build my stories based on that for the most part. I think what kicked it off was, there is a cutscene in Final Fantasy X, which I'm going to spoil a little bit of now. Not too badly, but block your ears if you don't want to. Where you've
No, go ahead.
Yep, you've been captured, and you, the main character, and sort of your mentor, the other character, are there, and he explains to you this thing that sets the world of Final Fantasy X apart from everything else. This little speech he gives about what he calls the spiral of death. Sounds so super morbid. But right from the beginning of the game, you were set to think that, okay, sin is the thing that sets this world apart. But then the speech kind of goes off and says, actually, it's more than that. It's just part of this thing. The world would still be like that without sin, which is this huge monster that's the big bad through the whole game. And that got me thinking, and I won't deny that the concept of this monster sin has certainly been an influence in what I came up with. The parallels won't be hard to see if you've played through Final Fantasy X. I really do see the influences for stuff I work on as well. Like, I was reading Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archives series when we first started, and like my character started off in a rocky wasteland ravaged by special storms, which is basically the setting of this book series. I definitely see the influences I've got. I try to hopefully not steal them too, obviously. But if I see a cool thing, I want to incorporate it in my world.
Influences...
Sorry, what was that?
Do you tend to wear your influences on your sleeve a little bit more?
I mean, I don't hide them, and like Patrick, my brother, one of my players, he will have seen that influence in the beginning because he was also reading those books around that time. Like, it's clear. And, you know, it wasn't exactly the same, but that part of it was sort of something I really enjoyed in that setting, so I wanted to bring some of that into a part of my world. And then I put my own twist on it as well, how it tied into the special thing about my world. Like, the explanation of the storms was tied into that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't try to hide them. I don't actively discuss them with my players all the time either, but partly because it just doesn't come up during gameplay. But no, I try to be conscious of them, I think, because on the one hand, I still want to have my stuff be mine. I don't want to just steal ideas from everywhere else. But also, it feels kind of nice to be influenced by things that I love and the things that I create. So it's nice to be able to acknowledge those, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've kind of lost my train of thought now. But that's, I've kind of lost my train of thought a little bit now if I was going somewhere more with all that.
Nah, you're fine.
But, yeah, so that's a bit about my world and how I built it. So some things I haven't done, I haven't gone and drawn maps or anything like that. The closest I've done to doing top-down was when they finished the first arc and I wanted to give them options for where to go next. So I came up with a few lightly fleshed out places for them to go. I gave them the options. I used my web development skills and I made a little like A4 size web page that I printed to PDF. It was pretty cool for each of them. And then the one they chose, I fleshed out a bunch more and I kept fleshing it out as they were going through it. And, you know, I had where they started and where they were going and then I filled in the middle bits as they got to it. You know, I put a fork in the road and they chose the direction I didn't think they'd go in, so I had to make up a whole bunch more stuff. And now there's this city here where all this stuff happened that honestly wouldn't have been there if they hadn't gone that way. And that's fine. It's fine. I don't mind telling the story as it happens like that. I just have to be, you know, one session ahead of them. But yeah, so that's me. That's bottom up. Top down's another way to go. So I fleshed out the history of the world a bit with the gods that I mentioned, with that event in the past, with what sets the world apart, and then everything else I've just built into that. And that's sort of the core of the world. That's the thing that I try to build everything else off of, instead of trying to put the whole thing in there to start with and then popping things in, which is certainly another way to do it. It's just not a way that works best with how I do world building. Yeah, I'm interested to know that. Oh no, you go ahead.
You've given me some stuff to think about, I think, when it comes to like building my world and how I want to go about it. And
so I want to ask. So, what you've been talking about, did you want to do that in the Dark Souls world, or in your own world inspired by that?
Oh, in my own world, taking the like base of what Souls was, and then bringing that further, like expanding on some of the stuff that I thought was the most interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of like what I was describing about knowing what your influences are, right?
Yeah,
You see something
exactly.
cool and you take it and you build your own stuff off it. I think
Like
that's good.
I would unquestionably my influences are going to be stuff like the Adventure Zone. Like I've
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
put so much time into listening to that like whole story, and like the Stolen Century is an arc that particularly resonated with me because it also introduced me to this like super easy way to do the kind of storytelling that interested me the most about doing D&D, and doing something based off Dark Souls, but then taken into, I guess, what we would think of more of a cyberpunk kind of setting.
Yeah, yeah.
Would
I thought
also
that might be what you were
that's
going for, how you described it.
extremely up my alley.
Yeah,
I despise most high fantasy. I think it's boring. Um,
I won't disagree with that.
Even something like Destiny, something influenced by Destiny, would also probably be likely in like my world.
Hmm.
Like Destiny
Especially
is
if, because what you were describing to
completely
me
interesting.
sounded like there's very fast progress.
Hmm.
So if you get to futuristic stuff, it's still going to be influenced heavily culturally by stuff that was relatively recent
Oh yeah,
in that world, but now like medieval kind of however long ago. It was super long ago for us for when we're at technological level. But you know, it's kind of like Destiny, how it's got enemies that are named after goblins and stuff, doesn't it?
yeah, it does, and they're
Yeah.
robots in
Yeah,
Destiny.
exactly. Yeah.
Like you have goblins and hobgoblins and whatnot, but they're all just robots.
So I think having listened to the Adventure Zone stuff, that's surely going to have been a good way to observe some of that collaborative storytelling, which is so important in these things.
Oh yeah,
And
for
the
sure.
system you've described sounds like it's going to be one nice and fast paced. Some of the time, the rules in D&D can really slow down things like combat. Um, oh damn it! And there was a second thing that I've forgotten. I was going to say something else about it.
That's fine.
Oh yeah, there aren't enough rules for you to have to worry about your players being rules lawyers. Probably
Right? Yeah.
is the
Like
other thing.
honestly, it would be so loose. I would like.
Mm,
That's the thing. I'm interested in making this like a loose and still very interesting world rather than a quagmire of just rules. I'm not interested in that. Just like it's a lot for me to take in and have to deal with.
yeah, it's about the balance between story and challenge, right? What's more important? Are you going to challenge your players in terms of like difficulty,
Yeah.
and not in terms of like moral quandaries and stuff? That's fine. That's story, I think. Or are you focusing on telling a good story, right? And games have got that balance too, right? Some games are entirely focused on challenge. Like no one plays Meat Boy for its story.
Yeah, no,
But
if you
but like people are into challenge. That's cool. People are into challenge and they really enjoy it. Other games are definitely way more about story. A lot of games with heavy narrative have now got narrative difficulties where they really tone down the challenge of combat and stuff, so people can play it as a story. I think it's really good to
yeah.
have.
I also like that I like games which are almost entirely about challenge. Like I think that's exemplified in how much I play Overwatch and how much I play
Mm,
a lot of like competitive multiplayer. How much I play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
right?
Like
Don't play that for the story.
I have I'm checking right now,
Hmm.
81 hours in
Oh
that game.
wow! I didn't realize it'd been that much
I've
already.
owned it for about a month.
Pretty good.
Like, and for context, the like most played game in my library on Steam has 150 hours. And this has already exceeded basically every other game that I've ever touched in my Steam library.
Nice. You've already beat me on Dying Light. I've played 72 hours of Dying Light, and I played a lot of Dying Light. And
I've
you've owned
played
this game
like
for a month?
yeah, I've played like 24 hours of Dying Light, something like that. 26 hours of Dying Light. And 27 of Wolfenstein the New Order on PC apparently. Like the next one immediately above it. Wolfenstein is good. I feel like I need to keep saying that because I don't know that anybody who might have been interested in this game has played it. Like I really think that this game is unquestionably worth playing, and if you have even a passing interest in it, you should 100% check out Wolfenstein: The New Order.
When does the second one come out?
That comes out in October.
Okay, so 2 months away.
Yeah.
Got enough time to go through the game.
There's another Evil Within game coming out in October as well, which has me interested right now.
Oh yeah? I never played Evil Within.
Well, horror games aren't exactly your bag, are they?
No, they're definitely not. That's
Yeah.
I don't know
so
why.
don't play The Evil Within. Because that's very explicitly a horror game.
Yeah.
I have also heard good things about Tacoma. And that game looks very interesting.
Yeah.
It's from the team at Fulbright, who made Gone Home.
Okay.
And it is a science fiction narrative exploration
Oh yeah?
game. There seems to be a lot of super interesting stuff going on in it. And I would like to pick it up at some point and see how good it is. It reminds me quite a bit, like, I guess the initial impression of like the spaceship that I see in Tacoma also reminds me a lot of Prey, which was recently released.
Okay.
That's another title that I've wanted to check out because I've heard good things.
Fair enough. You just reminded me though that it's this month that the XCOM 2 stuff comes out. It's like still a month away.
Yeah, no, but you're thinking about it already, aren't you?
I am. When exactly is it coming out?
It's like August 27th. Okay, 28th. That was very close.
No, I don't know. I'm guessing. Or have you seen 28th?
War of the Chosen.
That's what it's called. That's right.
War.
29th.
29th. Okay.
Although, that might be the 29th in other bits of the world next to the 30th.
For Americas? I think it's actually 29th for us. I think that's accurate. So
that'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually that seems accurate. I think XCOM 2, the base game, even released like doing a release on the 29th for us and for everybody else, and it kind of rolled out globally at midnight.
I've got my what the fuck face on right now because the link I found is from the Kotaku Australia website where it talks about August the 29th being later this summer. It's winter down here.
Oh,
how did they not know that?
Kotaku Australia just like they get all their content from just the US.
No, some of it's like actually
there's
good
a
Southern
few
Hemisphere
specific
stuff.
things, but most of it is just like a push. It's just a pull from.
I just wish they'd
Kotaku's
spotted
main
this
feed.
and corrected it to later this winter. I already have done my huge rant about that after E3, so I won't go too far into that.
XCOM. I also want to get into XCOM 2 at some point.
Actually, that makes me think. So we've just been talking about collaborative story playing, and I said you don't play PlayerUnknown's or Overwatch for the story. But now I wonder, do you? Because the story you've told me about PlayerUnknown and like how you played, was it Winter Mode? Is that what it was called?
Winters, yeah, we
Winters,
called
yeah.
that set of house
That's
house
right, it was
rules
named
was
for someone.
Winters.
Yeah, but like
if you want more information, bit.ly/PUBG Winters.
cool. But like it's that same collaborative storytelling thing, right? So you play it for the challenge, but you still get a narrative thing out of it. It's just a different narrative thing, right?
Yeah, it's I like the emergent is the like hot buzzword to use to describe this kind of storytelling that like develops itself over the course of your gameplay. So like Far Cry 4 was like one of the big pitches was like, oh yeah, you'll see like animals fighting each other and there's like dynamic events that happen in the world and it's this emergent storytelling. We want you to have like moment to moment little bits that you can just tell a story about. And it's a very good like 10-second story generator is the thing. Like, oh yeah, I did this and then it set off this crazy chain of events that lasted for like 10 seconds and then I like snuck up behind this dude and that was it. I did it. And PlayerUnknown's is very good at generating stories which like let me rephrase.
Okay.
It's not very good at generating those stories. You have to also be very good.
Yeah.
the particularly good games that you have can lead to just some very, very, very good stories. There's one in the in that bit.ly link I mentioned. There's a story that we had from that mode, which was the first time that like house rule set was used to win the game. I had a kind of run in last night when me and Ash were playing. We were playing at about like 11:30 at night. We ended up having this like really great match where we kind of picked this location that very fortuitously, like the circle came down on us for the most part. So we were like in it and we very rarely had to move, but we also didn't have great equipment because our drop wasn't all that great. We got separated initially. We had to meet up. I had to like pull a car up to the north of one of the big towns in the game and just drive away from that. It was tense and risky, and felt good, and we made our way to this location, and the circle came down on us, and we were just like sitting there with a shitty pistol and like a crossbow and a shotgun between us. It was not good. And then the circle moved south, and we had some folks to deal with outside that we thusly failed to deal with.
Oh wow! Still,
we were
you get that kind
defeated.
of that small scale stuff you're talking about in D&D and stuff. Those are also things that become really memorable because I find people remember the story arcs, of course, but also the little badass things that their characters do all the time and the funny ways they fail, right? And those don't last long, but they can be really memorable. Still in those other cases as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, not to be scoffed at.
No, I'm not saying that.
No. You went scoffing. I didn't mean that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely not saying that there's like no value in how Far Cry tries to handle emergent storytelling by giving you like 30-second chunks of potential storytelling at a time.
It's often that small moment-to-moment stuff that can really set the feeling for a setting or something as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just agreeing with you.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us this week on the show.
So what are you looking forward to playing then?
I am looking forward to spending more time with Wolfenstein because I forgot how good that game feels. It feels just very good. It feels very good.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Final Fantasy XIV is getting to some interesting places also. I have made myself as cute as is physically possible. It is incredible how cute you can be in this game, and so I've like been on this quest to be very cute, and it's worked. I've made my way on an airship in towards the one of the next major cities, I guess, in the main storyline.
I get that MMOs have a main storyline.
Well, like Final Fantasy 15 does its damnedest to actually do something interesting with it. Like, one, there's like 3 major cities that you start out in, and you get airship travel after a certain point. The city that I was in, like, the main story revolved around like the Syndicate, which were the richest. They were the richest like people in the city, and they essentially controlled all the affairs in the city. So, and then it like dips its hand into a lot of internal politics in that city. It feels super cool, and then it also starts like broadening out in a cool way. So, Final Fantasy XIV has been a game with an MMO with a main story that I've actually enjoyed quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to playing more of that. I think those are my like 2. What are you looking forward to?
So I think there's going to be 2 big games for me this week. One is More Dying Light. Ideally, we might finish it and either look at the following stuff or the what was it called? Legends.
The Legend system.
Yeah, the Legend system where you can get stronger and punch a lot of zombies or something. I reckon I'll be playing that with my flatmate, and I reckon I'll also be playing more cities. It's nice to have a relaxing game like that. I might also do more Just Cause, depending on what I'm feeling like at the time I decide to listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
But they're both really good podcast games. I reckon we'll be playing more of them. They're really pressureless games. Like, I am not worried about anything while I'm playing them. It's real nice.
As a reminder, Just Cause 3 is currently free for PlayStation 4 owners who have PS Plus.
Oh, nice.
So if you want to check out a good podcast game, something to listen to us during to, maybe go back in the archives, see what we're about.
Yeah, I bet no one will beat my 24-minute record of Wingsuit.
Speaking of Wingsuit, if you do it, I'll
be so sad.
If you do it, I'll send you a video game. How about that? I have copies of a bunch of stuff just kind of like sitting around. So like, if you want a PC game, if you send me a screenshot of you beating Mark's record with like 25 minutes in the wingsuit without touching the ground, I will just give you a free video game. I might give you 2 free video games.
You just can't beat it, so now you're trying to crowdsource it.
I'm not trying to crowdsource beating your record because I still want to also beat it, but also I want to see your record broken, and I'll give people video games. There's a bounty on it.
No, I can understand that.
There is a bounty. Let's see, what else is going on? We have a Patreon. If you would like to support the show financially, you can do so by going to bit.ly/PauseCast, and that will take you to our Patreon page. This time I'd like to thank our existing patrons. Thank you very much to Ash Yee, PD, Rezidog, and Noah Holmes for their continuing support of the show. It means a lot to us. We're on Twitter at PauseCast Show. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/PauseCast Show. You can email us questions and get them answered. PauseCastShow@gmail.com. Mark, you're online. Where can people find you online?
So I'm on Twitter at Honest Universe, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. What about you?
And you can find me, once again, at bird.school. I'm back. Reunited with my domain, and it feels so good. You can also find me at hoisted.online. It's another good web domain that you can find me at. Shout out to Idle Thumbs. Thank you as well to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. We use it at both the beginning and end. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned that specifically on the show, but we got a question about where the ending came from. It's the same song. It's cut from the middle, so I understand if that's a little bit confusing. But it's Honey Milk Island by Leon. You can find Leon's music, including the recently released Bird World, at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. And I think that is the show. Thank you so much for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure to kind of be here doing the show, and I appreciate that we've been able to do it for as long as we have.
Yeah.
It's pretty buck wild. Next week is episode 50.
I know,
I don't know if we're going to do anything special, but I'm going to try.
I might yell 50.
See you later.
Bye.